Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Today is January 11th, 2023, and there's a lot going on. Before we begin, and first by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be most relevant. The most relevant piece of information, of course, would be the window for the potential reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar and some of these other currencies. I'm not saying that the dinar will reinstitute in country tomorrow, but I am saying that it could, and we'll get into this in a little bit more detail. This is going to be a little bit of an unusual call today. There's so much going on having to do with us as American citizens above and beyond the fact that a number of us are dinarians. And so I'm going to be wandering around on this call a little bit today. I had planned to do a long call for today, and of course that will be the case. But the subject matter is going to be a little different. I'll put it this way. What's going on in Washington, D.C., much of it is under the surface, not seen or heard by the average American that's just trying to raise a family, pay his bills, and do all of those things. But in the context of politics, and those of us that have degrees in political science, what's going on is cataclysmic. I'm from the D.C. area, thereabouts. A lot of my associates, people that I work with and friends are in D.C., and I have never heard some of the things that I have heard most recently. This is going to be a very interesting year, not necessarily a good year, but a very interesting year because we're finally seeing pushback from what's been going on the last couple of years, and I'm going to get into that in a little detail in this call. I would suggest that you have a pen and paper handy because I'm not going to expect you to believe anything I say on its face. So I'm going to give you places to go to confirm some of the things I'm going to discuss. The only other thing I'll mention, and I've said this on previous calls, I have degrees in political science, macroeconomics, degrees that I acquired over 50 years ago. But I went to a rather prestigious small liberal arts college for my undergraduate work. And the topics that were discussed at the time had to do with the evolution historically of republics like ours to pure democracies and authoritarian governments. And many of the things that they discussed as problems that could theoretically occur 50 years down the road, we're witnessing that today. So, unfortunately, some of my professors or most of my professors are not around, but I'd like to pick up the phone and call them and thank them for telling me the things they told me, even though I didn't truly absorb them at the time. But I'm seeing these things play out in real time today. And because I'm a political junkie as well, I've been involved in a lot of this, and it's going to be discussed with you here today. But let's go ahead and talk about the subject matter that's the normal information for our weekly calls. And that is, of course, the situation in Iraq. And I want to touch very briefly on the project to delete the zeros. Although I prefer the term to collect the zeros because what they're doing is they're collecting the 3-0 provisional currency, both domestically and internationally. Now, domestically, we've seen the dinar fluctuate substantially against the dollar. That has to do with a number of things. Many have suggested, and I don't disagree with them, that what's actually happened is in country we've got a de facto float, and they're just allowing the dinar to seek whatever level it wants. Many of our clients have gotten disheartened when they see the devaluation of the dinar, but my response has been the devaluation of the dinar against the U.S. dollar is an intentional CBI operation in order to collect the 3-0 provisional currency in country. But there's a lot of work going on internationally as well to collect the 3-0 currency, not from us, but from some of the nefarious players. There's a partnership right now between the IMF, the United States Federal Banking System, and the Paris Club to recover the several $1 trillion of stolen 3-0 provisional dinar that are floating around in the world. It seems that almost all of that's been collected, and the understanding is with the CBI that once the stolen currency has been collected internationally, that the CBI will fulfill their obligation to reinstate their currency, at the very least to change the exchange rate toward a 1-to-1 with the U.S. dollar in country. And that's in progress as we speak. The other issue politically is that it looks as though they're progressing very well with the 2023 budget. However, I'm going to delink the reinstitution of the currency with the passage of the budget. Many people are out there saying, well, you know, they can't pass the budget unless they change the exchange rate, or the exchange rate, the new exchange rate is going to be incorporated in the budget. That may or may not occur. Now, we see that we have the passage of the 2022 budget, but the exchange rate have fluctuated after that, so it could continue to fluctuate. The CBI has the unilateral authority to change the exchange rate. Ideally, I'd love to see a change in the exchange rate just prior to the final passage of the budget or in concert with the budget. That would be the optimum situation, but it's not an absolute necessity in order for the exchange rate to occur, whether it occurs prior to the passage of the budget, in concert with the budget, or shortly thereafter. But in my opinion, we're not going to see the CBI come out one day and say, okay, the exchange rate is $14.50. Now the dinar is going to be 1-to-1 with the dollar in country. I don't see that happening, although it's possible. In my opinion, that's highly unlikely. I think we're going to see a float go from, say, for example, $14.50 back to $11.90, then perhaps approaching 1-to-1 with the U.S. dollar. And once that occurs, then we will probably see the dinar on the Forex to float, and that would be the revaluation. But the notion that we're going to go from $14.50 to, say, $3.22 per dinar, I just don't see that as a possibility right now. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying, in my opinion, given all the information at hand, that's highly unlikely. But even if tomorrow, for example, they come back and say, well, the dinar is at $11.90, to me that signals that they've begun their move and they're going to go to 1-to-1, because there's no reason for them to change the value of the exchange rate and to strengthen it against the dollar unless their objective is to utilize their own currency. Now, they do have a lot of dollars in reserve, and they can utilize those dollars if necessary to run the government and do other things, although even though they've got close to $100 billion USD, it's going to cost them $50 or $60 billion just to run the country. So it's not an amount of money that they can utilize for any long term. The other issue is that Iraq has purchased a substantial amount of gold. Well, if they're going to operate under the USD reserve currency, they don't need the gold. The purpose for the gold is to back their currency. So once again, the indications are that the CBI is moving to the reinstitution of the dinar in country. Now, for actually over a decade, Trust Unlimited has been marketing our trust to dinarians, and for very good reasons, and I'm going to get into that in the call. However, given the attempts of the current administration in this country to create an authoritarian open border welfare state, I think it's important for us to explain in a lot more detail how our Family Asset Protection Trust package can protect you against what these individuals have in store for us. So let's start and talk a little bit about our family package and why we've been marketing it to Dinarians. And further, why you need to establish this trust prior to the global revaluation of the dinar and some of these other currencies. First, by establishing this package, you will protect your privacy and your anonymity. Now, you want to do that for a number of reasons. One, because what you possess should be no one's business anyway. But after you've acquired this wealth, you need to understand the landscape. 1 out of 4 millionaires is sued during their lifetime, and some 40% of those lawsuits are frivolous lawsuits, meaning that individuals know they probably don't have a good case, but believe that they'll get some sort of a little payday just to go away. But when you place your assets in a trust package like ours, these individuals are flying blind. They have no idea what you possess. And remember, civil suits are about monetary awards. So these individuals would have to pay substantial upfront retainers in order to pursue civil litigation. And frivolous lawsuits are not going to be involved in cases that involve their paying a substantial amount upfront. So the privacy and the anonymity is important. Second, for those of you that have dinar and other currencies, by establishing our trust and assigning your currencies to that trust, you're going to avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If, for example, you're holding these currencies in direct title, when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would, of course, be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along at the time that these currencies have revalued, and there's many other things you'd rather be spending your time and money on. And third, the cost of a 6-year IRS audit would probably be more than the cost of our trust package. On the other hand, if your trust is in force and your currencies have been assigned to the trust, there's less than a 15% chance of an IRS audit. The IRS determines that this revaluation has occurred within a rather sophisticated trust. But more importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. Third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on doing gifting to family and friends. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be done on the tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% gift tax, you want to give currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the exchange currency after you've negotiated the exchange, that can be done outside of the trust with a standard gift letter. But if you're in a situation where you're hesitant for any reason to give these recipients the post-RV lump sum, then you can give to them through the specially designed gift subtrust that is part of our trust package. It's an optional subtrust. But if you give to them through the subtrust, then you will be in complete control of the post-RV proceeds, meaning that you can manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you wish. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is that it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now, that estate must go through probate, process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. The first approximate $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number 2. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. And the day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million. However, this time, protected in our asset protection trust package. And because it's in that package, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package, pre-RV, is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to another person or entity. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You assign those currencies to your trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth. And a couple of years down the road, someone decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, our trust package is constructed in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. So this prospective plaintiff better have very deep pockets and a very strong case. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever sue you for would be the value of the currencies at the time of the transfer, $5,000, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a strategy called segregation of assets, and this is why we've established a family package of trusts. I'll give you an example of how this would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to the trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, and let's say a boat. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust, the initial trust you established pre-RV. Now, how does this protect you from future bad acts and litigation? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiff would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your sub-trusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that sub-trust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other sub-trusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident in question. Therefore, the plaintiff has no legal standing to pursue those separate legal entities or persons. Now, this is why the establishment of this trust will protect those of you that are dinarians. But as I said earlier, we spent over a decade marketing this trust to dinarians. But if you are an American citizen, you need to understand that the current administration is creating a situation where you need to protect yourself, not from another citizen, but from your own government. And I want to review with you what's been going on the last couple of years and why our Family Asset Protection Trust is going to be indispensable for you and your family, whether you are dinarian or not. Let's start first by going back a little bit. The intent to create a police state. Now, what is a police state? A police state is a situation where you have a very well-armed government and a disarmed American citizenry. Anyone paying any attention at all knows that the left absolutely is relentlessly trying to disarm the American citizens. They're using every excuse, every ploy, every tactic they can think of. Now, as I said earlier, have a pen and paper handy. I suggest you Google President Obama's speech on a federal police force. And in that speech, he envisioned creating a federal police force which would have the size and weaponry of our military. Now, why would a domestic police force need to be that large and that well armed? Well, the only thing I can think of is its creation of a police state, because by definition, that's what a police state would be. What do you think the defund the police movement was about? The defund the police movement was basically to attempt to eradicate local police forces. Now, the left had to walk a very fine line because they had to defund it to the extent that they could justify creating a federal police force without jeopardizing all the local politicians. Fortunately, and I predicted this would be the case, it would fail miserably. But they're not going to give up. They're going to try other things. So the first thing is the creation of a police force, a national police force. The second thing is to create an open border welfare state. And that's exactly what we've witnessed. The border is wide open. We've had over 5 million people come into this country illegally. The president now is establishing a program to process these people, not to stop them from coming in, but to process them. He's even created an app so they can tell us they're coming from anywhere on the planet so that they can be processed. Now, if you doubt me as to whether or not this is an intention, again, I have something for you to Google. It's called Cloward and Piven. It's the strategy for the creation of an open border welfare state. These two individuals established this thing in the 60s. And I alluded to earlier the fact I went to college. One of the guests we had at college was Cloward and Piven. And as a freshman, of course, I bought what they had to say, hook, line, and sinker. But by my senior year, I realized, hey, you know what? These people are crazy, and I got squirreled. What they want to do, basically, is destroy this country, and that's exactly what they're attempting to do. The third thing they're trying to do is to destroy the petroleum industry. And before I go on, I need to start with the first lie that was told over 100 years ago. Every time you hear the term fossil fuel by experts, politicians, or just individuals that use it because it's just part of the lexicon, you need to understand that you're being lied to. We have to go all the way back to 1892 during the Geneva Convention, where John D. Rockefeller Sr. paid scientists to refer to petroleum as a fossil fuel. In other words, the remnant of the dinosaur. This was a lie, but it was told for a very simple reason: to introduce the notion of scarcity, therefore propping up the price. Petroleum is a renewable mineral. It's created between the interaction of bacteria, algae, and plants. The only thing more plentiful on the earth than petroleum is water. And petroleum is a biodegradable substance. Now, we can look, for example, to the leak in the Gulf a few years ago and the damage that was done. But within a year, it was all resolved because the biodegradable fuel was absorbed by the earth and by the ocean. If you drop 25 million barrels of tapioca pudding in the same area, you'll get the same result. So we're being lied to about petroleum. That's the first thing you need to understand. It's not the remnant of the dinosaur. It is a renewable mineral, and it's biodegradable. The next thing that's happening, of course, is the creation of the global electric grid. They're trying to jam it down our throat with the cars. They're trying to jam it down our throat with tools. They even recently floated their new balloon, the elimination of a gas stove and going electric, which is absurd. My heritage is I'm Greek, so, I know this, it's not a surprise to many people, but I was in the restaurant business, or our family was. I hate to get stereotypical about it, but it is the truth. When we came to this country, many of us opened restaurants. You cannot function with an electric stove in the restaurant business. You have to have gas stoves. But the creation of the electric grid is done so they can control us. They can control our movement. They can control how far we go. They can keep tabs on us wherever we go. And the irony of it is, what is electricity? What is a battery? It's storage of power. Power created by what? The fossil fuels that these elites are going to use for themselves. Those batteries are powered with petroleum, with coal, and other things that are natural, but within the classification of fossil fuels. So it's a lie. It's all a lie, but this is where they're going. And the last thing is the creation of the central bank digital currency. So let's review a couple of things here. First, let me go back and talk a little bit about the car. We talked about the car battery. And now, of course, these are lithium batteries. So these people who claim that they're into renewables, that they want to protect the planet, there is absolutely, positively nothing worse for the environment than a lithium mine. And the end product, which is a lithium battery, is not biodegradable. It's the worst thing we can do. For example, to create that electric battery, you need 25 pounds of lithium to create one battery. You need 50 tons of ore to create, to glean from that to 25 pounds you need for lithium for the battery. You need 60 pounds of nickel. You need 44 pounds of manganese. You need 30 pounds of cobalt, 200 pounds of copper, and 400 pounds of aluminum, steel, and plastic. These are all rare earth metals. They literally need to strip the earth to create a battery that's going to be powered by fossil fuels, which battery, when it dies, like windmills and solar panels, are completely and totally non-biodegradable. It's all a lie. And the reason I keep bringing this up is because I'm going to show you how we can avoid having to deal with all of this. And the third thing I mentioned was the central bank digital currency. This is another scam. Now, pursuant to Executive Order 14067, signed by Joe Biden, to be effective on December 13th of 2022, a month ago, Biden and company have decided they want to transition to a national digital currency. They say that it's safe and liquid. This is a lie, just like about everything else that's come down the pike. First of all, the digital currency is not safe. We've witnessed routine hacks into government programs on a daily basis. We also know that an EMP weapon, electromagnetic pulse weapon, could literally destroy all digital records. I wouldn't put it past our own government to facilitate such a thing just to clear the boards for whatever reason. And unlike hard currencies, you can only leave your digital currency with the Treasury Department in their wallet or exchange it for some good or service. You can't put it in your pocket. You can't do anything with it without their knowledge and consent. This would also allow the government, for whatever reason, to freeze or confiscate the digital currency. They don't go to the banks. The banks are out of the program. This is the Treasury. It's all centralized. They could even establish a credit score system, meaning that they could freeze or confiscate funds if they disapprove of your purchase, for example, the purchase of weapons, or even if they disapprove of some of your publicly held views on social media. Now, if you doubt me, Google China's social credit score system and understand that a number of politicians have stated publicly that they think that the Chinese social credit score system is a very good idea. So we're going to talk about how we can circumvent all of this if they should proceed with this central bank digital currency. So in closing, I want to mention a few things. As a dinarian, as an individual that holds these pre-RV currencies, or as anyone that has an asset that they think is going to appreciate substantially, you want to transfer that asset to a family asset protection trust package in order to preserve your privacy, in order to preserve your anonymity, and in order to protect that wealth from being confiscated. But whether you have such an asset or not, if you are an American citizen, you are going to need to understand how to operate outside of the central bank digital currency system. And by establishing this trust package, we can show you exactly how to do that. Now, a lot of the things that can be done domestically. They're not complicated. You just need to understand how to transition to income-producing tangible assets to minimize your exposure to the central bank digital currency system. But if things keep moving south, which is a possibility, you're going to need to consider some offshore options beyond this trust to operate outside the central bank digital currency system and possibly even the SWIFT system. I hope it doesn't come to that. I don't think it will come to that, but the only way you can prepare yourself for that possibility is through the establishment, first and foremost, of that domestic entity, that family asset protection package. Now, as I stated earlier, under our system of civil procedure, It's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them, which is why any American citizen in this situation needs to establish their own family asset protection trust package. But not only could you lose control of your personal assets held in direct title, it's invariably at those times in life that you need and want control that you're most vulnerable. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of your package of family asset protection trusts. And particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trust Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre and post-RV, as we understand them. So again, thanks so much for listening to our call. The things we've discussed are of interest to you. I hope you will contact us to get our initial information package. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed with the establishment of your family asset protection trust package, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. You can contact us by email by going to trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com, or you can contact us through our phone service, which is 307-274-4122. Contact us by phone or email to request our initial package. We'll get it right out to you. It has a lot of information about us, about our trusts, about the currencies. Review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. If you wish to proceed, and that's entirely your decision, everything you need is included in the package, and we can take it from there. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to do some Q&A here. My phone is blowing up, so something's going on somewhere, but let's go ahead and open the Q&A and see if anyone has any questions. Again, to contact us, you can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com, and our phone service is 307-274-4122. It looks like we do not have any questions for this afternoon. That's fine. Again, I'm glad we had a chance to talk this afternoon. Our next call will be next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.